Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu amma ba'd. A'udzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa nazzalna alaykal kitaba tibyanan likulli shay' wa hudan wa rahmatan wa bushra lil muslimin. Sadaqallahul azim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi wa fi anfusihim hatta yatabayyana lahum annahu al-haq. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Dear brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We return with our address on global events which are related to Islamic eschatology. Our last address was on last Monday. So today we address you once again after a week's gap. So we will actually report to you all the reports in the preceding week from Tuesday to this Monday. So last Monday and for the past 1 week or so, we had been addressing the subject on a daily basis, and events were moving rather slowly then. So we had decided that why not just come back for this address or this session once a week. But it seems that the last week was a very eventful week, and we might as well have continued our daily address, or at least join you back sometime midweek. Anyway, this week we are going to cover the entire week's events which are Islamic eschatologically related. After this session, we will again decide whether a daily address would be more appropriate or a weekly address, or for that matter, if we decide to come back sometime midweek. So those possibilities are there. We'll just decide and let you know about that. So last Tuesday was 19th August 2014, and in fact the entire week, if you have followed the news, obviously we're going to add to that the analysis. If you follow the news as far as the global events are concerned, and as far as its relationship with Islamic eschatology is concerned, it's heavily focused on ISIS, which we had discussed last week as well. So even in this week, on Tuesday, we read about ISIS and the conflict with Iraq, in Iraq, and the conflict of ISIS with Iraq. It seems that ISIS still has a stronghold in and around Mosul. So apart from this report, there's not much that are mentioned as far as Tuesday's report is concerned. So ISIS still has a stronghold in Mosul, and that's pretty much it. The next day, that is 20th of August 2014, Wednesday, again the headlines seems to be dominated by ISIS. So the conflict, or rather the ISIS control, the report says that ISIS still maintains a stronghold, still maintains control over Tikrit. Tikrit, if you remember, it was the former president of Iraq, Saddam Hussein's hometown, and ISIS seems to still maintain control over the region of Tikrit. Apart from this, there are two more reports about ISIS. There is a report which says that one man's no triggered Yazidi carnage. If you remember, last week we had dealt extensively about the issues related to the ethnic minority religious subgroup, the Yazidis. So one man amongst the Yazidis who decided not to bow down to the ISIS ultimatum that triggered the Yazidi carnage, a rather shameful act which we have condemned even in last week's addresses. And the third report basically is that a statement issued by ISIS which warns US that we will drown you in blood. Now this statement is, it may seem to be very aggressive, but this basically, according to us, it is a drama which is unfolding in front of our eyes. It is the US which is supplying arms to ISIS, and it is the US which is giving instructions to ISIS so that it may seem to the world that there is basically a conflict between the US and the ISIS, whereas in a sense the ISIS is a group which is working for the Zionist agenda and working for their Zionist masters, including Israel, including the US. So this is basically a drama. Apart from this, Israel again resumes its barbarous attack on Gaza. On 21st of August 2014, that is Thursday, if you thought that the acts committed by ISIS was bad, what we have discussed over the last week and prior to that, then today's news must be labeled as the most shameful act for quite some time. So much so that the report is no more covered in the global news section. It had to occupy the cover page, the front page of the newspaper. That is the very first page. ISIS beheads US journalist to avenge airstrikes in Iraq. That's what the heading states. Now this is, we condemn this. Let us discuss this in perspective. I mean, if this is Islam, then the non-Muslims, if this is Islam, just remember this part, if this is Islam, then the non-Muslims have every right to criticize Islam. But unfortunately, this is not Islam. And the group, the ISIS, that is continuing its barbarous activities, barbaric acts, they are not a Muslim group or an Islamic group for that matter. If we refer to the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, and we do not want to make this into a very long session, we will deal with this subject specifically in a separate lecture, which we intend to upload sooner rather than later. But let us just give you an overview. According to the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadiths, there are several hadiths in which there are specific instructions of how to deal with non-Muslim subjects under a Muslim or an Islamic rule. So, number one, a Muslim is not allowed to kill a non-Muslim citizen. Number two, a Muslim is not allowed to kill a non-Muslim civilian. Number three, a Muslim is not allowed to kill a non-Muslim ambassador. Number four, a Muslim is not allowed to kill a non-Muslim religious leader. And number five, which is the most important and which is very much related to what the heading says, I mean the issue is intrinsically related to the heading, is a Muslim is not allowed to punish a non-Muslim for the injustice committed by a co-religionist. Do you get that? To avenge airstrikes? What sort of a logic is that? Beheading a journalist to avenge the airstrikes in Iraq? What sort of logic and shameful act is that? And some people continue to think that this group is a Muslim group or an Islamic group. What nonsense! What rubbish! Not only have they beheaded this US journalist, James Foley, they have video recorded this barbaric act and uploaded in YouTube. This is a disgusting group. I mean, the plan is working very well for the Zionists. Their intention was to put up a front which appears to be Muslim so that they will be able to malign Islam, and that's what they are able to achieve. They are able to achieve their objectives, their goal, their target. All the traditions that we have stated is very clear, especially the last tradition that we stated, the last hadith that we stated, that you are not, this is for applicable for Muslim. A Muslim is not to punish any non-Muslim, a non-Muslim, for the injustice committed by a co-religionist. So what is this? Avenging by killing a US journalist, James Foley, beheading him to avenge the airstrikes in Iraq? Think for a while. If this is the group who wants to establish the Khilafah, and if Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, if according to some of you he is a Khalifa, if this is his understanding of Islam, what sort of a Khalifa is that? Is he, I mean, do you accept a person who does not have even the basic knowledge of Islam as a Khalifa? Forget about the conspiracy theory you are hurling at us. Forget about those nonsense. In fact, there's no conspiracy in it. It is not a conspiracy theory. That's a universal fact. It's known. You just need to search for his identity. But even if you deny that part, do you agree? Do you accept a person who is so shallow in his knowledge of Islam and in his character and in his moral conduct of affairs to be a Khalifa? You must have the acumen or the intellect of a donkey to agree with that concept. Moreover, I mean, this is what they have done, and naturally, this news deserved a mention in the front page, in the cover page, in the first page of the newspaper. It's no more a global event, a global news, a report worthy of a global news section. It demanded a first page entry, and that's what it has received. But what we want to convey is that this is not how you deal with a non-Muslim. You're not to kill an ambassador. In this case, it was a journalist, a non-combatant. Besides this, for this day, there are no more important reports except for the fact that, again, the Israeli attacks has killed Hamas leaders, a Hamas leader's wife and his infant son. So those things have become very common. So they boast of the technology. If you can't hit your target and you miss, I mean, there's no point wasting our time over it. So mainly this news about ISIS, a rather shameful act. And as I said, again, you need to just think over all the issues, how this is Islamic eschatologically related, that their plan, the Zionist plan, is working overtime for them to achieve their goal of establishing Greater Israel, which is to come sooner rather than later. On Friday, 22nd August 2014, The report is again about ISIS. The focus is again on ISIS, and the report, the headlines is ISIS video shows Yazidis being converted to Islam. Again, a very shameful act. We had discussed this issue previously as well. There's no point in repeating the entire session or address, so to say. You can refer back to some of my previous addresses about the same subject. And it claims that hundreds of Yazidis are being converted to Islam, something which they are taking great pride of, and they claim they are very happy to accept Islam. This is not the case at all. I mean, firstly, there is no forceful conversion in Islam. If this is Islam, then don't blame the media for criticizing Islam. But the good part is that this is not Islam, and ISIS is not a Muslim group. It is not an Islamic group. We know who they are. It's a Zionist group, basically. So, I mean, that's it. It's a very shameful act. The claims are rubbish. Hundreds of Yazidis being converted to Islam, and they say it's willfully, it's happily they are doing so. It's not the case. If you just force them, they're forced to accept. And if you ask them that have you done it on your free will, and are you happy to do so, they will answer what you want them to answer. Otherwise, you will kill them anyway. You've given them an ultimatum. And even before the conversion, you have said that if you stay in the mountains, if you continue to run away, you will die of starvation or we'll kill you anyway. So what do you expect? What answer do you expect from them? So again, a very shameful act. I mean, the ploy, we have been stating this again and again. It may seem to be monotonous, but we continuously need to keep reminding you about this, that their plan is to simultaneously, the Zionist plan is basically to simultaneously do two things: to arm the ISIS so that they become a very powerful outfit, terrorist outfit, and simultaneously to use the media to malign Islam. Now, when they're maligning ISIS, their objective is not to malign ISIS, the objective is to malign Islam, and that is the end result. And that is what they're able to do. So that is what is happening actually. So I think the picture is very clear. So this was about Friday. On Saturday, 23rd August 2014, again the focus is on ISIS in the global news section, where the headlines reads, ISIS beyond anything we have seen. And it's an apt headline. There are two sub-reports, two or three sub-reports in the same section. The first is Shia rebels kill 70 in Sunni mosque. This was expected. Not that this is something good or something. This is equally, we condemn this act equally, just as we had condemned the Sunni attack in Shia mosques. But then this was bound to happen. The oppression, this Sunni group, the ISIS, which it claims to be, the oppression that it carried out or is carrying out on Shias, so a retaliation was expected sooner rather than later. So the civil war, which is a long cherished dream of the Zionists, it's on its way. The Sunni versus Shia conflict, it's very much on its way, and it's going to harm Muslims. The sooner they realize this, the better. And the sooner they realize that who or what is triggering this, the better for them. So basically it's ISIS and the other terrorist organizations, Boko Haram, etc., which are being heavily funded by the Zionists on one hand, so that they're able to use their barbarous activities as a means to malign Islam. On Sunday, 24th August, the main headlines goes, again it's related to ISIS. This ISIS will not simply go away. It will continue. It seems that it will continue to dominate the headlines for at least a few days to come. if not some few weeks or months to come, or maybe some years to come. So the headlines goes like this: will Obama align with Assad against ISIS? Now it's a very interesting read, because all this time Obama was against Bashar al-Assad. Assad, you will know, it's pro-Russia. I mean, Russia has interests in Syria, specifically related to its ports. And the US, or the Zionist group of Israel, America, and Britain, was always against Assad. So the headline says, will Obama align with Assad against ISIS? I mean, this ISIS has created, I mean, they are able to create the media hype as well. So ISIS has created such a nuisance in the Middle East, in the West Asia, that the news goes like this: that will Obama align with Assad against ISIS? So something very important, something very interesting, and I don't think so it will happen. It's not in Russia's interest, so I don't think Russia will allow that. It's not in Syria's interest, because all these while America was against Syria, I mean Assad, so such game plans do not come that easily. And if something will like this were to happen, then it would alter the West Asia equation, completely alter the picture of the West Asia equation. So I mean, this is a news, it's interesting read. I don't take too much out of this, but then basically again everything is focused single-handedly now on ISIS, just trying to magnify the barbaric acts of this group, which was the agenda anyway. Okay, so that was the news. And the second interesting news is, I mean, while we were focusing on ISIS, the stability in Pakistan was in turmoil throughout the week. So now Zardari backs a Sharif. So now a four-way conflict in Pakistan. So okay, so that's it. Basically the focus is still about the ISIS, and in Iraq and in Syria, and the way ISIS is expanding, and the way the Zionists are able to leverage the media in their favor against ISIS. So that is what is the news for this day. So we move ahead with the next day. And today's news, Monday, 25th August 2014, completes our address with the entire week's coverage. Today's news is very interesting, rather interesting I should say. Now, to add to all this confusion which is being created by ISIS, Boko Haram, I hope you've heard the term before. I've also addressed about Boko Haram in the past week's address. So Boko Haram chief now announces caliphate in a Nigeria town, in Kano, a town in Nigeria. So Boko Haram chief announces caliphate in Nigeria. Now what's going on? Now what's going on here? So there's confusion upon confusion. Do these people not know about the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ? And they are claiming to be Muslims, and they're claiming the Khilafah for themselves, and they're claiming that they are the Khalifa. Have they not read the traditions in Sahih Muslim, which very clearly state that when an oath of allegiance has been given to a Khalifa, and then there is a second claimant, then the Muslims should behead the second claimant. And there's another hadith also in Sahih Muslim which says, when there are two caliphs, Khalifas, for whom the oath of allegiance has been taken, then the second claimant should be killed. I mean, Abu Bakr Shekau, that's what his name is, the Boko Haram chief. Everyone seems to be interested in the name of Abu Bakr. Everyone seems to adopt the name of Abu Bakr, because when you associate the name of Abu Bakr with yourself, then immediately people are reminded of the first Khalifa of Islam after Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu. I mean, if really there were people like Abu Bakr in today's age, in this age, there would have been no confusion, there would have been no problems in the world today. But unfortunately, just assuming the names does not serve any purpose. It just creates confusion, a whole lot of nonsense. So first we have this fellow Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and then again now this fellow Abu Bakr Shekau. Huh? What nonsense, claiming the Khalifa, claiming to be Khalifa and claiming to establish the Khilafah. Does not have the basic knowledge. I have been telling you, these are Zionist funded agents. These are crypto Jews who appear to be Muslims. Don't you realize? When will you realize all this? All these simple things, I should say. It's rather simple to understand. If he does not have the basic knowledge of Islam, I mean, according to the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, whom these people are claiming to defend, according to the same traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, the Boko Haram chief should be executed, killed, beheaded immediately, with immediate effect. And the Muslims should do that. I mean, how otherwise would he claim to establish the Khilafah? Obviously, one possible logic from Boko Haram's point of view is that they do not acknowledge the Caliphate established by ISIS. That can be the only possible explanation. But if you ask Boko Haram why, they have no answers. Because they are trying to establish the Khilafah in exactly the same way, just as ISIS has done. These people are trying to play with the psychology, the emotions of the people by assuming the names of Abu Bakr, whether al-Baghdadi or Shekau, whatever. We are not interested in that nonsense. And there is a second hadith which we want you to draw your attention to. It's from Musnad Ahmad, which says that the Prophet ﷺ stated in a long hadith. It's a long hadith, but we have to deal with it. Otherwise, we'll not have the understanding of the subject will remain incomplete. Anyway, we want to address these subjects in depth later in lecture sessions, not in short address like this, but we have to do this. Otherwise, the address itself will be incomplete. So the Prophet ﷺ said that the prophethood will remain for as long as Allah wills, and then Allah will remove it, raise it, and then there will be Khilafah according to the methodology of the Prophet, according to the methodology of prophethood, and then Allah will raise it. Then there will be hereditary rule for as long as Allah wishes, and then Allah will raise it. And then there will be oppressive rule for as long as Allah wishes, and then Allah will raise it. And then the Khilafah, listen to this part very carefully, and then the Khilafah will return, and it will be according to the methodology of the prophethood. And then the Prophet remained silent. So basically a few stages. If you enumerate, first is prophethood will remain for as long as Allah wishes, as long as Allah wills. So this is very clear, the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. Second, there will be a Khilafah, Caliphate, and this will be in accordance with the methodology of prophethood. And we know very clearly what it is referring to. It's referring to the first 4 or 5 caliphs or khalifas of Islam. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, Umar al-Faruq radiyallahu anhu, Usman al-Ghani radiyallahu anhu, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu. And if you include the rule of Hassan radiyallahu anhu, which was for a very short period of time, about 6 months or so, then it's 5, otherwise it's 4. And then we had the Umayyad and the Abbasid and all the way to the Ottoman rule, who call themselves caliphs, khalifas, but it was basically a hereditary rule, and this is what it is describing. And since 1924 we do not have even the Khilafah system. They do not even associate themselves with the term. So now we have no more hereditary rule. We do not have hereditary rule anymore. We now have what the Hadith predicts or forecasts to be the period in which there will be oppressive rule, and that is what we are experiencing since 1924 till this day, and to continue till the coming back of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Now this is very important, because the next phase says that the Khilafah will be restored, and when this Khilafah is restored, it will once again be in accordance with the methodology of the prophethood. So this is very significant, because now after this period of oppressive rule, when there is no more Khilafah and when it is going to be re-established, it will be done so, and this Khilafah will be in accordance with the methodology of prophethood. This is very important. This Khilafah cannot be established except by Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, who has exemplary knowledge of Islam, who is exemplary in his conduct, in his character, in his ethics, etc. In his knowledge is obvious. So this caliphate cannot be established by any Tom, Dick or Harry, not by al-Baghdadi or Shekhau. Cannot be established by these nonsensical people, these agents of the Zionists. Even if you do not agree, and even if you cry conspiracy theory, I mean, we have clearly stated to you with examples from the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ. If you do not agree with that, then you're as good as al-Baghdadi or Shekhau, because they do not agree with the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ in a sense. The claim is something else and their act is something totally different. Otherwise, how else could you explain the beheading of a journalist? On what grounds? We have very clearly stated, we don't want to repeat our talk unnecessarily. We have very clearly stated towards the beginning of this address, when we were dealing with this subject. And how else could he establish a second Khilafah when the second Khilafah is to be executed, is to be killed, is to be beheaded, the second Khalifa, that is, to be beheaded by the Muslims? If you don't have this basic understanding of Islam, how are you, what sort of a Khalifa are you? There are other points as well, but we do not want to deal with those issues in this session. I mean, these are enough proof for us to refute this pseudo-Khilafah, pseudo-fraud, imposter Khilafah, and imposter Khalifa. Both of them, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi as well as Abu Bakr Shekhau. Nonsense. So, as I said, some interesting developments in the news, and that completes our analysis, Islamic eschatological analysis, with all the global events for the week. So we will return, I'm not sure when, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a week's time, or maybe somewhere in between, sometime in between, maybe for a midweek session. So let's see how things goes and how events unfold in the global scenario, in the global context. So if there are things which need to be discussed from an Islamic eschatological perspective, we will do so, inshallah. So that's it for this week's address. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin.